How do I begin? First, let me just say, welcome everybody. If you just tuning in, this is Nick and Roo, UnRead Book Review. We are here every other Saturday. Nick just got finished sharing his wonderful book with us, and I am about to jump in here. But I just wanted to thank you for being here with us and remind you that we love your comments, your feedback, your suggestions. So please make sure that you share those with us so we can continue to share with you the best that we have. So during cancer season, I was able to share two books that kind of dealt with, it dealt with a level of nurturing. And we know cancer is mother, water, all these things, just taking time for self-reflection, and refinement. And I was telling someone that when I was younger, much younger, I used to, if somebody told me they was a cancer, I'll run the other way. Like you can't even get two sentences out. Once you tell me you're cancer, I was like, damn, I don't want no parts of that. And I didn't understand why they used to just irritate me. Like it was something about them that just rubbed me wrong. Later on, I understood that I was very empathic, and the things that I would pick up on are the signals that they would send out through the water, and I am a water bearer. So I was able to pick up these things, some of these subtle things that they were putting out into the universe, whether they knew it or not. I was able to pick it up, and it made me feel a way, and I couldn't understand why I was feeling what I was feeling when it ain't got nothing to do with me. You know what I'm saying? So, I just wanted to say that being where I am now, and being able to appreciate the beauty of nurturing, the beauty of cancer season, the beauty of what it offers us an opportunity to do in terms of looking inside and taking time to care for ourselves, taking time to see who's caring for us, who we caring for. All these things are just key element, just key. And recently I talked about the importance of fathers in nature and nurturing that whole process. Unfortunately, many of us come from homes where there's no father present or no strong or positive male role model. So the benefits of divine masculine nurturing is not there, and this creates energy. It creates a vibration in the household, especially an impression upon the children. And even men coming and going or women coming and going, that still leaves an impression upon the children. And depending on what that person's energy was like, whether they were kind or brash or rough or depending on that person's approach to that space, it really does shape and mold the nurturing of the people around, even the adults. Because like I was explaining last time we came together, nurturing doesn't stop when you become a certain age. Everybody needs to be nurtured all the time. Like this is something you will do, just like everything else I tell you. This is what you're gonna do till you leave here, whether you know it or you don't, whether you participate or not. It's happening, right? And growing up, I was a very like I said, I was known as the worry wart, and so I was always super sensitive, and sensitive in the way of I was rough and tough with my Afro puffs, but I was sensitive in the way of I could pick up energy and I didn't understand it. And so I love sports. And one of my favorite sports besides football is boxing. One of my first jobs I ever got was with a boxing agency. And I loved being around it. I don't know what it was about it. They call it the sweet science, and it intrigued me. And the lives of boxers intrigued me. It wasn't always their performance in the ring that got my attention. Sometimes it was their story itself. Needless to say, the legendary Muhammad Ali, was key, not only in the sports world, but also in the political and social world as well. So people like that intrigued me. As I grew up, my love for boxing had not changed. It got deeper. And it really took a change when I started watching this guy.
Iron Mike.
When I started watching him, he did something to me that I couldn't quite understand. And he was such a different type of boxer. Like, I had seen ambitious boxers, I had seen, just angry boxers. I saw people who was there just for the money, to be pretty. I saw people that were there just because it was the place to be at the time, but it was something about him that was different. Like, even when I look at this picture and I look at his eyes, I see something. I see something.
I did too when I was looking at it.
Say again?
I said, no, I did too when I was looking at that cover. Yep. Yeah, I did too.
But it's different than this.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely different.
It's different. It's so different. It's, oh my goodness. So I'm trying not to get emotional. During talking about cancer stuff, right? We in Leo season now, so rawr. I'm here. I'm a lion. But so my book, my offering, let me just it's called Mike Tyson, Undisputed Truth. Okay, Mike Tyson, Undisputed Truth.
Yes.
And it's an amazing book. Now this book was gifted to me by someone who knew that I loved boxing, and they knew that I had a love for Mike Tyson. So it was a solar return gift one year. Okay. And I'm very grateful for it. And it's matter of fact, it's one of the only I don't have a lot of biographies. It's one of the only ones I have. And I got Bobby Brown. Shout out to my fellow Aquarian. Anyway, but this book came out in 2013, and it is a piece. Okay. Now, like I said, trigger warning. Anybody that knows the life of Mike Tyson know that he was a wild boy. He was a wild boy. And he made no apologies for being a wild boy. So he said what he said, and he meant what he said when he said it. Right? And this book is so raw that I had to put it down a couple of times. Like, man, hold on. Let me put this down. But in the dedication, it says, this book is dedicated to all the outcasts, everyone who has ever been mesmerized, marginalized, tranquilized, beaten down, and falsely accused, and incapable of receiving love. Incapable of receiving love. Thought that was that was pretty profound. Mesmerized, marginalized, tranquilized, beaten down, falsely accused, incapable of receiving love. And when we talk about nurturing, that's a form of love. And when we talk about a child's upbringing and why they are the people they are today, why we are the people we are today, our nurturing has something to do with that. Mike Tyson never made it a secret that his childhood was tumultuous. It was a lot of goings on, and a lot of people saw who and what he could be, and they used that for their own benefit. And I can't say that I was there. I can tell you some of the things that I've read over the years, some of the things that I've heard over the years, but only people that really know is the people that was there, what their intentions was. But I want to jump in here and say that when I first opened the book after the dedication, In the prologue, it started in bold letters and said, I spent most of the 6 weeks between my conviction for rape and sentencing traveling around the country, romancing all of my various girlfriends. It was my way of saying goodbye to them. And when I wasn't with them, I was fending off all the women who propositioned me. Everywhere I go, there was some woman who would come up to me and say, come on, I'm not going to say that you raped me. You can come with me and I'll let you film it. I later realized that that was their way of saying, we know you didn't do it. But I didn't take it that way. I'd strike back indignantly and with a rude response. And although they were saying what they said out of support, I was in too much pain to realize it. I was ignorant, mad, and a bitter guy who had a lot of growing up to do. Some of my anger was understandable. I was a 25-year-old kid facing 60 years in jail for a crime I did not commit. You know, I remember when all this was going on. It was filthy McNasty. The headlines, the newspapers, the interviews, the talk shows, the commentaries, the people coming out the woodwork. It was a lot. I can remember being 25, 26 years old. I couldn't have handled all that. I couldn't. The way that his life was about to go, is no way that you could prepare for that. But nurturing would have helped. Okay. And people say, oh, you make it sound so simple. No, I'm not. Believe me, I'm not. He talks about Don King assuring him that he would walk away from the charges. And he said that one of his friends from Chicago even told him about a hoodoo woman who could cast the spell. So he settled on Santeria, a priest to do some witch doctor shit, as he says. We went to the courthouse one night with a pigeon and an egg. I dropped the egg on the ground as the bird was released, and I yelled, we're free. A few days later, I put on my gray pinstripe suit and went to court. After the verdict had been delivered, my defense team had put together a pre-sentence memorandum on my behalf. It was an impressive document, right? So it says that in the letter, it concluded that he was a sensitive and thoughtful young man with problems more than the result of developmental deficits and then pathology. And that with regular psychotherapy, he was convinced that he could go the long-term prognosis, which would be good. So, you know, I read that part because even then it was pointed out that his problems that was going on right then was much deeper than what people knew. Now, the people who followed boxing had already heard some of these stories about some of the things from his childhood, right? He doesn't talk a whole lot because he goes back and forth. And that's the thing about this book. And I think what even makes it more raw and just sad. You know, I mean, I that's all I can say is sad, but because of the whole of it and how we know it's turned out. Again, this was 2013. This was written. He talking about what happened when he was a kid. By 2013, he had already changed his life. You know what I mean? So because we know what the outcome is, it's like, even though you feel the sadness reading this, you understand that it was part of this process where nurturing is what it was that was missing. He talks about his mother on page 33. I I wanted to say 33 is important. Okay. But he talks about his mom, and he says where he had stole something from the store. That's what he was doing. He was stealing something from the store. He was being arrested. And they called his mom, and his mom didn't have a phone. So they picked her up and brought her to the station. She came in at me and proceeded to beat the shit out of me right there. By the time I was 12, this started to be a common occurrence. I'd have to go to court for these arrests, but I wasn't going to jail because I was a minor. I used to hate when my mother would get to the precinct and beat my ass. Afterwards, her and her friends would get drunk, and she'd talk about how she beat the shit out of me. I'd be curled up on the corner trying to shield myself, and she'd attack me. That was some traumatizing shit. And to this day, I glance at the corners of any room I'm in, and I have to look away because it reminds me of all the beatings my mother gave me. I'd be curled up in the corner trying to shield myself, and she'd attack me. She didn't think nothing of beating me in the grocery store, in the street, in front of my schoolmates, in front of the courtroom. And the police certainly didn't care. One time they were supposed to write up a report on me and my mother, and my mother stormed in and beat my ass so bad that they didn't even write me up. She even beat me when I was in the right sometimes. Once when I was 11, I was shooting dice on the corner, and I was up against a guy who was about 18. I had a hot hand that day, and my friends were betting on the side that I'd hit my numbers. I got down to $200, but I hit my number 6 straight times. Remember them sixes?
Yep.
I had won $600. Shoot one more time. Shoot for my watch, he said. And boom, I hit a 4, 5, 6. And he says that the dude said, give me your watch. And then he said, I ain't giving you nothing. And he tried to snatch the money from him, and he started biting him. I hit him with a rock, and we started brawling. Some of my mother's friends saw the commotion and ran to our apartment. Your son is fighting with a grown man, one of them said. My mother came storming over. All the other grown men were there letting us fight because they wanted their money. If this guy didn't pay, nobody else was going to. So I was in the middle of fighting this guy, and my mother jumped on me and grabbed my hands, smacked me, and threw me down. And she said, what are you fighting this man for? It says, what do you want with this man? I'm sorry, sir, she said to him. And he tried to take back his money. He says, my mother took the money and gave it to the man and smacked me in my face. He said, I'm sorry. She said, I'm sorry, sir. And he says, I'm going to kill you, MF. And I yelled as she pushed me away and said, I deserved every beating I got. I just wanted to be one of the cool kids, the kid on the street that had jewelry on and money in their pockets, the older kids, the 15-year-olds who had girlfriends. I wasn't really into girls that much, but I liked having the clothes and getting all the attention. By then, my mother was giving up on me. She was well known in the neighborhood and knew how to speak eloquently when she needed to. Her children had the capacity to learn to get along with others, but then there was me. I was the only one who couldn't read, couldn't write. I couldn't grasp that stuff. Why can't you do this? She said to me, what's wrong with you? She must have thought I was retarded. And she had taken me to all those places on Lee Avenue when I was a baby, and I undergo psychological evaluations. When I was young, I talked to myself out loud. I guess that wasn't normal. I could go on and on about what he says after this, the medication that they put him on, and all these things like that. But the one thing I want to point out is on page 46, he says, someone says to him, your mind is not your friend, Mike. And I hope you know that. You have to fight with your mind to control it and put it in its place. You have to control your emotions. You know, Mike had a lot of people in his life, and he still does. But all of them didn't always want the best for him. And some could say, well, how can you say that you weren't there? If they did, they would have took him out of boxing. Because early on, it was known that there was something more going on. There was an anger so deep. There was a need for repair so deep, a need for affection and love so deep that while he got it on the surface, he needed more. In his book, he had some pictures. So if you could give me that swing up
gotcha.
screen. He has some pictures of his mother and his father. And that's him at 9 years old. Don't he look like Bobby Brown?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And that's the only other biography. I'm not new to this. I'm true to this, y'all. Anyway, this is him at 13.
What, at the bottom there?
The bottom one.
13.
13.
Stop playing.
No. Yo, it says me at 13 years old. He looked all of 25.
That's what I'm saying.
This is him up here in the mountains. That's up here in the Catskills.
Okay.
And look at the look on his face.
Yep.
He really, really needed love. He wanted love. Like anywhere he could get it. And in 85, when Cuss died, you could look in at his face there. He was lost.
Yeah.
He became lost. You know, he spent a lot of times with his pigeons, which even that in itself has some interesting energy to go with it. Now, excuse me, I dropped my bookmark. Oh, everybody that did not get their bookmarks from UnRead, you better pick them up while they're hot. Go to the link in my IG bio. You can get yours, all kinds, different designs, different colors. I asked you to remember those 6 and those 3s because I had some notes that I wanted to share. Y'all know I always got notes.
Yeah,
so
yes, you do. 6 and 3s.
Mike Tyson was born, and you know, Nick, I was so tempted to fall into the rabbit hole. No, not fall, jump into the rabbit hole.
Oh boy.
Jump into the rabbit hole.
Oh boy.
When I started doing the maths. When I started doing the maths, I was like, oh, I done touched onto something here, boy. I done touched something.
Boy, here we go.
Okay. So he was born June the 30th, 1966.
Okay.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And he competed between 1985 and 2024. Uh-huh. And his full name, his given name, is Michael Gerard Tyson.
Okay.
So I was watching the math.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, for the bonus, maybe we'll just go in and we'll talk a little bit about his chart and stuff, because I wasn't going to try to do that all today. But what I'll say is, for those who study astrology and numerology, you know that you can look at a person's chart and see about their nurturing situation. Yes, and their relationship with their mother and their relationship with their father. And you can get quite the picture.
Yes, you can.
So for those who want to dive into that with me and Nick, you might want to come on over when we talk about that. Mm-hmm. But it's so much here that I can't even begin to really unpack it as to say this is why nurturing is so important. This is why I won't stop that cry, that call for nurturing, because, you know, his situation is common. And the viciousness and things that he endured and then opposed upon others and pressed upon others, is, you see it. You see where it began.
Yeah.
You see where it began. You know, I said that there was a trigger on this because many of us have some of those experiences. You know, either the predator or the prey. Because, you know, people think that the predators walk around forever being predators. Trust me, they prey. They are prey too. And trust me, like my mama said, what goes around comes back double. Feel me? But I want to go back to the most tumultuous, well, one of the most tumultuous public things, which was this whole rape case that he went through. I remember, and this is when I realized I was connecting to him on a different level. And I don't mean connecting in some weird kind of way, just that I could relate to his story, you know. Like, it's just stories, it's people's stories that you can just, like, I relate to Job, you know what I'm saying? Trust me, many of us do. But I was watching an interview, and he was just kind of like out of it, you know. Just, he wasn't talking smack like he usually do in his interviews, because we all know he got thousands of interviews. But, you know, he wasn't talking smack in this particular one. He was just like very, you know. And I remember him talking about wanting to kill himself. And that, out of everything he said, that caught my ear. And, you know, I used to tell people that's a sad man, because he said that he would kill himself and start all over again so he could do it right. You know what I mean? So he could be better. And, you know, I thought about, I don't, again, like I said, out of everything he said in that interview, that was the thing that stood out to me. Maybe it was because I understood that energy. Maybe because I had lived that energy. But whatever it wasn't like I was feeling sorry for him because of, you know, oh, he did this thing and now he in trouble and now he contemplating. I'm like, he always felt that way. That wasn't a new feeling. You could hear it in the way that he said it. This is what he thought all along. When he was getting those beatings as a young child, he was ready to leave here. When he was balled up in the corners, trying to protect himself, he wanted to leave here. Divine masculine, divine feminine nurturing in that time in his life was absent. It was not there. He was not protected. And we ask ourselves, when we do things like the Human Rights Week, and we talking about unmasking morality and things like that, we talk about, well, how did the child end up like that? That's how. And then you have people that come along and exploit them. Okay? Want to read something else to you here. So in the link, in the description below, Nick is going to put down there the link for one of Mike Tyson's interviews. It's one, you know, it's so many of his interviews that you can go to and pull real gems from, but this one right here I think is a really good one. So he's going to link that down in the bottom, and I just want to read something from the transcripts for you, if I may. He talks about knowing what inner peace is. So the mask that hold us back from inner peace, we take out on our loved ones, close to everyone in our family, our children, and our friends. Everyone around us suffers when we wear the mask, absolutely. So yeah, that's why I wrote the book, because I was achieving at every level and I was making millions, right? He talked about playing professional football. He said, but I was suffering inside. And I knew if I didn't change, I wouldn't have a family and my kids wouldn't respect me. And I was in the verge where my kids almost didn't respect me anymore. And it frightened me so much how they didn't work, how they did when they didn't feel that, when I didn't feel that I was respected. He said, I felt like dying. Again, right back to that. And I wanted to kill myself. In the transcript, minute 5:13. Right? 8. It's 8. You know what the 8 is, Nick. You know. You know what it is? I felt like dying. I wanted to kill myself. Yeah. He said, I didn't want to live anymore. And that was a big wake-up call for me. And that's when I began to shift. You know, I remember watching that interview and saying to myself, you know, that man need help. You know, he and not just, oh, let me come in and try to psychotherapy you, because that wouldn't have worked. That wouldn't have worked. He talked about how he became who he is, who he was in the ring, and how he didn't like that person. He said before a fight, he would cry. And they said he was known for this. Before a fight, he would cry. And somebody asked him, why was he crying before the fight? And he said, because the person I'm about to become, I don't like him. How heavy is that? He said, they say he would cry before going in there because he said he was going to transform into somebody he did not like, just to keep the people happy. You know, dancing for the people, trying to get the love of the people, trying to feel something. He talked about in this interview that you'll take a look at the bottom, and make sure that when you take a look at that video, you tag me and Nick from UnRead so they know we are sharing this video and letting people know that this is one of the greatest interviews he ever did. I loved it. I loved everything about it. You know, but you know, he talked about an ego, and he said Cus gave him an ego. He said he gave him one. He helped him build the monster. And you know, we've all heard the old proverb about, you know, what grows inside of a person is what you feed inside of them and what you nurture inside of them. So see, they sort of benefit of nurturing the monster. They sort of benefit of nurturing the pain. They sort of benefit of nurturing the fear. He said he was afraid. He said he can't even look in corners of rooms. So in nurturing that monster in him, this is what was created. It wasn't who he was. It's what he had to become in order to feel safe. And how many of us can say that some of the decisions we've made haven't been because we just wanted to feel safe? We are not always pleased with some of the things that we've done. And this is to say that, A, the nurturing aspect, learning how to recognize what hasn't been nurtured inside of us and learning what to do with that now. Because we can't go back. You know, Nick, I'm a big person on that. You can't go pointing fingers at everybody. You have to do the work now. And that's one of the things that I love about what we see in him now. And even in this interview, he says at minute 26:59, he said, the conduct of one is the conduct of all of us, the faith of all of us. And he says, when they asked him about all the women that he had been with, he said he wasn't proud of that. He said, because I didn't even know why I was doing that. I didn't know what the purpose was. And the man went on to ask him, he's like, was you trying to fulfill something? He said, no. He said, I wanted those women to love me because I didn't love myself. He said, I don't love myself. I got to let them love me. My love was to make right or to tell me that I was great. And so, I mean, I could go on and on because this book, you know, this book and this interview, I think is a great representation of, you know, the importance of continuing to do nurturing. one of the pictures I want to share is this one.
Get it on the full screen. There you go.
I don't know. I can't.
Yeah, right there. Right there. Yeah, don't move. Don't move. Stay right there.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know who that is a young Maya Angelou visiting him in prison. And if you see the smile on his face, you'd have to look really close in there. You see something in there. You see what I'm saying? You see something in there. And just being in proximity to the divine feminine, he looked lighter. Mind you, he in jail.
Right.
Probably got gazillions of people coming to see him. But it was something about this picture that was so motherly to me. And the fact that this is one of the ones he chose to put in here and talk about, I think that speaks volumes. He, in some of the interviews that he talked about becoming a killer, murder. I want to eat you. I want to eat your children. He says, that man said some crazy thing. I told you he was a wild boy when he get ready to go into that ring. But he was also this.
Oh, hold it. Okay.
He's also this. This is where he was on his way to. And it shows him with his therapist. We are going to talk about that part. When you saw him with his therapist. Yeah. And then they had some pictures of him and his children and his beautiful wife Kiki. And a beautiful picture of him. I think this is a great picture of him. That one was from 2012, talking about his life, family, and career. And I like I said, I can go on and on about this, and I'm just going to keep running back and forth talking about the nurturing and how all of that could have made such a difference in the man that we got to see. But in order to be the man that he is, he had to go through what he had to go through, as all of us do. But I will say that don't underestimate the power of nurturing in a child's life and the continuous need for nurturing in our own lives. I really cannot place enough emphasis on the fact that we have to continue to keep going inside. And that's why, the book that you brought this week, I thought it was so relevant because, that is an opportunity to explore inside and even end up addressing some of those core issues that, have caused us to, feel pain or have blockages or have places in our lives where we just stumbling blocks. Some of us have these stumbling blocks. Again, I refer back to his dedication of this book. He dedicated it to people who are incapable of receiving love. This man thought he was incapable of receiving love. He was paying for love anywhere he can go. He was scaring people for love for any way he can get it. But all he really wanted was to be loved. He wanted to understand love. He wanted to know love. And through his children and through, the women who I guess were able to see through, the other, and love him, even though he didn't love himself. All of those nurturing opportunities were important, and he had to not only realize that it was nurturing that he needed, but when he said he thought about losing the respect of his children, it changed everything. He goes on in that interview for that YouTube interview to talk about the death of his ego and laying that down, and that's when he talks about where he got it from. But again, it would just really behoove us all to do some inner searching. Everybody has their methods and their ways, and again, I'm so glad you brought that book. And people utilize these books. Take a look at these books, you know, and take what works for you. You might find a worthy lesson inside of it, a line that changes everything for you. So I'm grateful for the cancers. You know, I'm grateful for the people who make us feel our feelings. And you know, and I'm grateful that he found some kind of peace, you know, because truly uh from the from the worst places we find some of the best people, you know. And maybe it's being in these horrible conditions that create these softer, loving, you know, more apt to want to give people, you know. But it also creates the opposite, is some people can't get out of that cycle. You know, he talked about falling back into some of his old ways after trying, you know, after getting his life together. He talked about orgies in his house, and you know, just being using drugs and all these different things. And these are all forms of escapism. And you know, he talks about, you know, really knowing who your friends are when you face adversity. And I think we can all relate to that. You know, how we got all the friends in the world until, you know, we really need them. And that, for somebody who was not nurtured and cared for or made to feel safe, you can only imagine how that reinforces that. That reinforces it. It makes them, or should I say, reminds them of, you know, how they used to deal with it, and asking yourself, why even bother if it's going to be the same. But you know, like I said, I would love to talk more about this, you know, in a bonus video, because again, a lot of the stuff that he talks about can get quite graphic, but I think it's necessary. I think this is a well-written book. Like I said, it's very raw. He's a person that writes like he talk like I do, so I could relate to that. And you know, but it comes across heavy, and it almost comes across sometimes as if he wasn't remorseful, but it he wasn't able to feel. He wasn't able to feel, and but he was feeling everything. If for those who understand that. He wasn't able to feel, but he was feeling everything. So, my offering this week, Undisputed Truth, our beloved brother, Mike Tyson. I am Mike. I know one of the best fighters I have ever seen with my own eyes. One of the most amazing hero journeys that I've ever seen. Truly an inspiration in terms of just knowing that some of the people we have in this world that seem almost totally lost, they still have hope too, because this brother came a long way, like a long way. Mike Tyson, y'all. Undisputed Truth, great book. This is one that I will keep in my library always, because it is well written, it is raw, it is real, it is a hell of a story and a hell of a journey. And I continue to send high positive vibrations to him and his family, because they've endured a lot. So yeah. Shout out and blessings to the God, to the blessings to the God. That's my offering.
Beautiful. And shout out to Larry Sloman too.
Yes.
You know, helped them. Yep, helped them express
Yes,
himself.
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
To get that well written element while maintaining Mike's voice.
Yes. Larry Sloman is best known for Howard Stern's collaborator on Private Parts and Miss America. Sloman's recent books include The Secret Life of Houdini, with magic theorist William Collage, mystery stranger with magician David Blaine, Scar Tissue, the memoir of Red Hot Chili Peppers, lead singer Anthony Kiedis, and he says, so he's this is what he do. He helped folks get their story out there. So yes, thank you for that reminder, brother. I appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So does this being that you gain so much insight, especially with this topic of nurturing, that is so important to us, and that we've talked about on repeated occasions. Does this memoir / autobiography? Well, it's actually autobiography. Does this autobiography kind of encourage you or persuade you to get into more autobiographies, since you have very few of those in your library?
I love people's stories. I think that's why I love live events so much, because you get to interact with people and hear their stories. Many times, as my mama say, hearing from the horse's mouth, you look at things a whole lot different. And I think that's the thing with celebrity life, is that they create this image and they put it out there, and and that's what it is. And so you never really get to hear the whole story until something either go wrong, or the person is dead, or something like that. So yeah, I think if I was interested to know more about particular people, celebrities and stuff like that, I would. I tend to be very interested in current people's situations, people who are doing things to move forward with humanity, revolutionaries, things like that. So sometimes you don't always get that hero's journey, but I definitely could see how having more in my library would help me to even tap into some more topics, and it does encourage me to want to get a few more. Like I said, I have Bobby Brown, I have a couple more, like Josephine Baker stories on, obviously Martin Luther King, Malcolm. You got all the regulars. But this time, like I said, with the boxing thing and with sports, period, any of the autobiographies I have for sports, because I have a couple of football players, coaches, it makes me, I don't know, it just is something about it. It has to be something about the person that makes me want to come looking, because again, like everything else I've learned, when I'm drawn to something, it's something there for me to look at. And Nick, you and I have talked on so many occasions about so many topics, and one of my ones in my radical transparency rants, I talked about my own childhood, and having one of my adult children point out to me that I needed more nurturing when I was a child, that I needed more softness, that I got a lot of hard and I did not get a lot of soft, and it was apparent in me, and I was kind of taken aback that they were able to even see that after this long journey that I've been on, because I'm not new to this transformative journey. I started this journey when I was fresh 21 years old. My youngest son is 27, and so I've been on this journey for a long time, and the fact that my children can pick up on those things and see those things and be like, wow, I'm sorry, you didn't get blah 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 when you needed it, and I'm like, well, how you even know that? Because it leaves scars, it leaves marks. You'll know, what I'm saying. And I think about some of the decisions I made in life, and some, and the reason I made them, and it was because I was seeking protection and softness in places that it just wasn't, but because I was subjected to seeing it in those spaces, I thought that's where it was. So yeah, when I read these books, you know, a lot of times when I'm drawn to them, it makes me look deeper within. So I would definitely look at some. I would definitely put some more on my shelf. You know, we are always looking for more reasons to go. So definitely I can see myself getting some more, you know. And Maya Angelou is actually one of the people whose stories you know, I resonated with deeply. So yeah, I definitely would put some more on my shelf.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah, I have quite a few myself, but it's been a while since I've read any for, you know, for myself, you know, not counting what I read as a part of my job, my career, because that's I'll be reading another one of those memoirs for I mentioned that summer reading book earlier at the beginning of the show. But as far as like reading autobiographies, biographies, and memoirs for myself, not counting the reading that I do for school, it's been a while since I've read any myself. So
Right.
yeah.
You know, I you know what, I think that's interesting too, because that kind of speaks to, I think, why those books weren't like first in my choices, because you know, growing up, you do, when you're made to read, you know, a lot of times it's about these other people's lives, etc., 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 and you just the same ones over and over again, like I said, the usual suspects, you know. And so I think now with more people becoming more open about their real stories and not the one that they telling, you know, I think we'll see a lot more, you know. And you know, just a little religious you know, quip here. It says in the last days, you know, that verily they will confess their sins. And you see a lot of people coming clean about a lot of things, you know. In the past 15 20 years, you've seen a lot of people coming mad clean about it, like, look, I did this. Before you find out, I did this right here. And you know, I think that a lot of that has to do with, you know, obviously the cosmic shift in maturity and accountability, and people realize, you know, people doing work and realizing that there's a lot to forgive ourselves for, you know, to forgive ourselves for, and that can't be done without some deep introspection and some being real about what your life really was, and not the story that everybody think it is. So I appreciate these books, and I think that's, even though, like I said, his book is very raw, and he be saying some stuff sometimes, like with, like, you know, I'd be like, it's almost like he bragging, you know what I mean, on his viciousness and his in the monster type behavior that he was, you know, inflicting upon people. But it's raw. He telling the truth. He like, this is what was really going on in me. No filter. This is it. It was ugly in there. It was ugly in there, and I couldn't control it. That's why I read that line that told him, his friend that said to him, your mind is not your friend, and you need to know that, because you are not doing well, my friend. But you got to be able to, you got to face that. You got to stand down. How the young folks say, 10 toes down? You got to stand down on that. You got to face it. And I think that's the thing. You get a lot of these books, and it's full of puff and and you know, they're 9 cribs and they're $70 million, and you know, and it's a lot of puff and sunshine and sparkles. This book is raw. It make you want to be like just the cussing alone. You know what I mean? Just the cussing alone. You be like, all right, well, like I said, he write like he talk. I could relate to that. But that's also real. And you feel it.
Yep, you do.
You know what I'm saying? You feel it. You feel his hurt when he talking about his mother kicking him in corners, attacking him for no reason. Now we this is not attacking her, but this is saying we don't even know what would happen to her. What was wrong with her? How she was code switching on him right there while it was happening, talking eloquently. Remember, that's what he said. That's the word he used. that she was able to be eloquent in front of the people to make it look like he was just this crazy monster. And asking him blatantly, what's wrong with you? You know? Not seeing that it was all a part of his lack of nurturing. And him doing what he had to do to survive. Doing what he had to do to feel protected. How many of us have done something we didn't want to do to feel protected, to feel safe? You know? Let alone to get what we wanted or needed. So, yeah, I think the real raw books will always be the ones that'll get my attention. I don't want the fluff.
Yeah, no.
And I like current people's stories too. Like the dude down the street, I want to know what's going on with him. What was his life like? The sister that work at the Dunkin' Donuts with the black eye, I want to know what was going on with her. I want to see her write a story.
Yep. And I also, I've also made a point to, just over the years, like I said, it hasn't been recent, but over the years of me collecting people's stories, to not only collect those of well-known people, but when these everyday people, put their story in print and they share it, I try to support as well. I definitely have a couple of those in my library as well.
I do too.
Yeah. So for sure.
People that nobody would ever even know, you know what I mean? And everybody has a story in there. Everybody has one book, your book. Your book, because you was there.
Right.
You was there.
Nobody can tell it better than you can.
What? Listen, when I hear gossip about me, you know what I tell people? I be like, man, if you think that was hot, I can tell you some stuff you don't know.
Yeah, right.
I can tell you some stuff that really gets you going. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Woo, I know some stuff. I was there. But this, like I said, man, I think about my own journey. And that's part of why his story resonates with me as well, is I think about the journey I've been on and how the person that we see right now sitting here is a whole different person than the person I was, and definitely the person I would have been had I not, taken a different path. Just, I was fortunate to know early on that refinement was needed. Research and refinement was needed. And it always will be. And I dedicate myself to researching myself, and refining myself, and being an example. Just being an example for that of the benefits of refinement, and not martyrdom and all these other things, because people want to be remembered for different things. If I was remembered for anything, I want people to always know that it was always about me trying to be the best version of myself, and put that forward and show other people that, this is lifelong work, babe. This is forever, ever.
That's right.